My name is Alyssa Aggarwal, and I will be speaking to you today about strategies in teaching ELL or LEP students in urban schools. Teachers who work in urban schools will very likely be interacting with students whose first language is not English, and will need to be aware of who they are and what instructional strategies are most effective for these students. This presentation will focus on this demographic and highlight 6 main research-based instructional strategies that have been shown to benefit these students. Students whose first or native language is not English are referred to in schools by a number of terms, such as ESL, meaning English as a second language, ELL, meaning English language learners, LEP, meaning limited English proficiency, ESOL, meaning English as a second or other language, or non-native English speaking students. The strategies that I will highlight today as being effective for this population are effective in any schools, but especially in urban environments. The strategies are culturally responsive teaching, collaborative teaching, universal design for learning, non-linguistic representation, cooperative learning, and differentiated instruction. According to Kadir Rajagopal, author of Create Success: Unlocking the Potential of Urban Students, culturally responsive teaching means that teachers make standards-based content and curricula accessible to students and teach in a way that students can understand. This strategy is not merely an approach that works in specific classes, grades, or subjects. It's an overall method that can be integrated into all aspects of teaching. Students whose proficiency in English is basic may need their teachers to provide more TPR, which means total physical response, or more realia, which are objects and materials from real life, in order to comprehend the concepts and vocabulary words in a class. There is not one method that will work best for all students. Students who are developing their proficiency in English will need their teachers to activate their prior knowledge in meaningful ways that they can relate to, and will need their teachers to provide background knowledge when it is needed in order to complete academic tasks. Educating English language learners according to culturally responsive teaching practices will necessitate learning about the cultures and environments that students come from, and discovering ways to relate class content to their lived experiences. Students who are learning English as a second or other language have rich family values, long-standing cultural norms, and diverse lived experiences that can enrich the classroom environment and serve as a natural bridge between their current knowledge and the content of class curriculum. Students who speak English as a second or other language can benefit from their teachers instructing the class using the strategy of collaborative teaching. If students need individualized tutoring, bilingual instruction, or varied groupings for maximal learning, co-teaching can provide the supports that they need. Collaborative teaching can be carried out in a variety of ways. Depending on the needs of the students on a given day or during a certain unit, teachers may elect to implement station teaching, parallel teaching, alternative teaching, teaming, or any combination that can be intentionally used to benefit students who are developing proficiency in English. Universal Design for Learning, also known as UDL, is an excellent framework of instructional strategies that can benefit any group of students, but especially English language learners in urban settings. This multifaceted strategy offers students a variety of sources from which to learn, a range of methods by which to practice, and a menu of choices from which to choose for demonstrating their understanding. The goals of the design are outlined at the bottom of this chart. The strategy is focused on developing students who are resourceful, knowledgeable, strategic, goal-directed, purposeful, and motivated. Teachers of urban students whose first language is not English could ask for no better combination of outcomes for their students than the ones outlined by UDL. By way of example, the first principle of UDL recommends that teachers provide multiple means of representation. Basic TESOL strategies mandate that teachers employ modes that reach various intelligences, including auditory, visual, and kinesthetic inputs by the teacher and outputs by the student. This principle of UDL is a natural demonstration of a vetted ESL instructional strategy. A discussion of the implications of UDL for LEP students would be a separate presentation altogether, yet this one example should suffice as evidence for the effectiveness of this strategy for ESL students. Non-linguistic representation, one of Robert Marzano's 9 effective instructional strategies, was shown to have an average effect size of 0.75, which is quite high. Students who are learning English may not yet have the vocabulary and grammar proficiency to be able to understand classroom commands, direct instruction, or assignment directions, as represented in this picture. The affective filter, described by Stephen Krashen as the complex of negative, emotional, and motivational factors that may interfere with the reception of processing of comprehensible input, may be lowered for English language learners if teachers provide alternative modes of representation in an attempt to avoid overloading students with linguistic input. Non-linguistic representation can be practiced in a variety of forms in an urban classroom for the benefit of students with limited English proficiency. Classroom commands and rules can be represented with pictures and displayed in a prominent place. Instructions and directions can be modeled by the teacher or by students that the teacher elects to support their peers. Options for classroom practice or exit price assignments can be described with visuals such as sample assignments or modeling from the teacher. New vocabulary words can be taught using realia and tactile representations in order for students to make connections to the concepts. Another of Robert Marzano's 9 effective instructional strategies is cooperative learning, which has an average effect size of 0.73, which is again quite high. Students from diverse cultural and linguistic backgrounds, especially students with limited English proficiency, can benefit from cooperative learning. Activities such as numbered heads together, think, pair, share, and the jigsaw method can solidify concepts in students' minds and allow them space to work out their ideas. The cultural backgrounds that ESOL students come from, such as Hispanic, East Asian, and African cultures, are likely to be more communal than the mainstream American cultural framework, which has historically been more individualistic. As a result, ESL students who come to urban schools from diverse cultural backgrounds will likely be most comfortable when working with others, collaborating on assignments, and peer teaching concepts. According to the Metropolitan Center for Urban Education at NYU Steinhardt, differentiated instruction is defined as an approach to teaching and learning for students with different abilities in the same classroom. It recognizes and expects that students are different and teaching needs to be adjusted to those differences. It is grounded in the belief that all culturally and linguistically diverse students can excel in school when their culture, language, heritage, and experiences are valued and used to facilitate their learning and development, and they are provided access to high-quality teachers, programs, and resources. To be clear, differentiated instruction is in no way dumbing down education for some students while challenging others. Instead, it is an intentional approach in which teachers assess students informally as a part of instruction on a regular basis and tailor class activities and peer groupings according to the present needs of various groups of students. A key aspect of differentiated instruction is grouping students in various ways throughout the class for different educational purposes. In describing the various practical applications of differentiated instruction, the author of the white paper titled Culturally Responsive Differentiated Instructional Strategies wrote, "Sometimes students work with peers on the same level of readiness and sometimes with different levels of readiness. Sometimes they work with peers with similar interests, sometimes with peers with different interests. At other times, the students work with peers who learn as they do, sometimes randomly, and often with the class as a whole. These varied groupings can benefit students with limited English proficiency, as at times they are paired with native English speakers, at times are grouped with others who are not native speakers of English, but may or may not share the same native language, and at times with a mix of both. The social, linguistic, and overall educational benefits of such an approach cannot be underestimated." Students whose first language is not English who attend urban schools need teachers who are prepared to use effective strategies to connect with their students, provide meaningful learning opportunities, and maximize student achievement. The strategies outlined in this presentation are just a few of the myriad strategies that can be employed to connect with these students, challenge them in their education, and help them reach their fullest potential in meaningful ways. I will close with a quote from Robert John Meehan. "If your actions inspire children to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are indeed worthy of the title teacher." Thank you for listening.